Hello, everyone. A very warm welcome to everyone. Thank you for joining this virtual media roundtable of the PropertyGuru Asia Property Awards, India. Part of the region's most prestigious and industry-leading PropertyGuru Asia Property Awards series, the gold standard in real estate. We are very honored to host you today and hope that you will receive valuable insights and tips from our speakers today as we talk about navigating the Indian real estate industry through the COVID-19 pandemic. Please let me introduce myself. My name is Rafi Khan. I'll be moderating our roundtable today. Before starting off, we'd like to thank our partners for their great support this year. Official Supervisor, HLB, Official Magazine, PropertyGuru Property Report, Official Cable TV Partner, History Channel, Official PR Partner, Fleshman Hillard, Official Charity Partner, Right to Play, Official ESG Partner, Barndeck Foundation. Just some ground rules before we hear from our speakers. If you have any questions during the presentation, which is the first half of this 2-hour webinar, please feel free to type them into the question box in your chat. Towards the rest of the roundtable, there will be Q&As session once all the speakers have finished their presentations, where we will try and address all your queries and questions. On our roundtable today, we have Mr. Jules K, Managing Director, PropertyGuru Asia Property Awards and Events. We also have with us Mr. Amit Khanna, Managing Director, Phoenix Advisors and Chairperson of the Judging Panel of the PropertyGuru Asia Property Awards India 2021. Mr. Ajay Kapoor, CEO, 360 Degrees. It's a real estate service and member of the judging panel of PropertyGuru Asia Property Awards India. Mr. Madhav Raman, co-founder, Anagram Architects, and member of the judging panel as well. And last but not the least, Mr. Paul Ashburn, ASPAC leader, HLB Real Estate Group, and the official supervisor of the PropertyGuru Asia Property Awards. Thank you all for joining us today. Without further ado, let's hear from our first speaker, Mr. Jules K.
Thank you, Rafi. Thank you. And good morning, everybody. Now, before I jump into the details on this year's Asia Property Awards, I would also like to personally thank our expert speakers today for giving their time and sharing their knowledge and insights. Their ongoing support for the Asia Property Awards in India is very much appreciated and highly valued. So thank you all for joining us today. Next slide, please. And the next. So to start this webinar, I would like to give a brief summary of the PropertyGuru Asia Property Awards and their importance as a benchmark for quality in real estate across the region in Asia. For the last 16 years, the Asia Property Awards have grown and diversified from a single country awards into a regional series that now covers some 15 plus markets in the Asia Pacific. Every year, PropertyGuru now runs national awards programs to recognize the best developers, properties and designs in countries as diverse as Australia, Indonesia, Singapore, Thailand, Philippines, Vietnam, China, and more recently, of course, India. The winners of each country awards program are eligible to compete at the annual PropertyGuru Asia Property Awards Grand Final, which takes place in December and brings together top developers and projects from across the region to celebrate the best of the best in Asia's residential and commercial real estate sectors. The judging process for all the awards is consistent, independent, and fair, with additional credibility added by a regional official supervisor, HLB, an advisory and auditing firm known globally, who also join us on the panel today. Quality is always a priority for the PropertyGuru Asia Property Awards team in order to offer the gold standard in Asian real estate recognition. Next slide, please. So a quick look back on 2020. Despite the unprecedented challenges of the global pandemic, in terms of reach and participation, the PropertyGuru Asia Property Awards continue to lead the way in terms of prominence, credibility, and prestige across all of our markets. To ensure the safety of our participants, we switched to a virtual format in many countries, and this proved very successful, as our online events extended the reach of the PropertyGuru Asia Property Awards around the world. Last year, as you can see, our online galas attracted over 500,000 viewers across 75 different countries, giving Asia's property developers and their projects far more than just industry recognition. This year, we will once again be live streaming all the awards galas online, with selected physical events also taking place around the region to give property developers, real estate agents, investors, home buyers, and everybody interested in real estate the widest possible view of the properties and opportunities on offer in this growing region. Next slide, please. So for real estate developers, entering the biggest and most respected industry event of the year is not difficult. There's a wide range of categories to choose from, including developer, development and design categories, and entries are submitted online, along with information, supporting images and videos. The independent judges, who you will meet soon, review all the submissions and also discuss each project and company in depth. And based on criteria developed over the 16 years by our expert panels of the judges, they then judge the winners in each category. And to support their decisions, they also conduct either physical or virtual site inspections before assessing the materials and videos presented by the developers. And as I mentioned earlier, HLB will officially supervise the entire judging process to ensure that it remains credible, transparent, and open. And they will also double check and confirm the winners before we announce them to the industry through the media and online through social media channels. So the winners and highly commended companies from India will be announced in early December. And that's right before our Asia Property Awards Grand Final. The winners from India will then go on to compete for regional honors against their winning peers from other countries around the region. Last year was the first time for Indian projects and developers to compete at the Asia Property Awards. And Brookfield Properties picked up 3 awards for Best Office Development, Best Green Development, and Best Breakthrough Developer India. An impressive achievement indeed. Next slide, please. So every year, right before the Asia Grand Final, PropertyGuru also hosts its annual Real Estate Summit. This event features thought leaders from around the world, including economists, technology innovators, groundbreaking architects, and smart investors, all of whom share their expertise and thoughts on the future of the property industry, design, sustainability, and innovation across the Asia region and beyond. This Asia Real Estate Summit, combined with the Grand Final, will be hosted online and streamed throughout the world this year for safety reasons. This means that people can log in from home or their place of work to experience an enlightening virtual conference, followed by a glamorous live stream gala event that appeals to everybody from senior marketing officials to CEOs, architects to urban planners, serial investors to first-time home buyers. In fact, anybody who shares an interest in real estate. The Asia Property Awards team is proud to include India in our regional series, and we really look forward to seeing a strong lineup of Indian properties and companies competing at the PropertyGuru Asia Property Awards 2021 this December. Next slide, please. So thank you once again for your participation today. I hope we can provide you with some interesting insights. In the meantime, here are some dates for your diary for the Asia Real Estate Summit and the Asia Property Awards Grand Final. And that's all for me today until the questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Jules, for taking us through the significance and the expanse of the awards and Property Guru. I think it is very exciting times for the Indian real estate industry. And without much delay, I would like to call upon Mr. Amit Khanna, Managing Director, Phoenix Advisors, and also the chairperson of the Property Guru Asia Property Awards India, to shed light on the significance of these awards.
Thank you, Rafi, and good morning to all of you. I'm going to spend the next 5-10 minutes taking the cue from Jules and talking a little bit more about the importance of these awards. And then I would also like to take you through the categories that we have for this year and the timelines for submission and the final results. One of the important things that I want to speak to all of you about today is that awards per se are not just about victory, but about celebration. And celebration of our spirit, our resolve, and our resilience. And what better year to celebrate that than 2021? It is an unusual year for all of us. I wouldn't imagine anyone who's been untouched by the pandemic in some manner or the other. And which is what makes it increasingly important in this year for us to celebrate achievements. And this is what makes this edition of Property Guru Asia Property Awards truly unique and special. This year, we want to bring to the limelight at a continent level the highlights from Indian real estate. I said this last year and I say this again, any Asia award show cannot be complete without India's participation. And Jules was kind enough to fix that last year. And this year in version 2, we look for even greater participation and competition. The panel of judges are experts in their respective fields, and collectively together, we are well equipped to understand the finer details of the participants in the awards. Last year, we spent hours deliberating the final winners, and sometimes it can get vigorous, even heated, but all towards a fair and credible outcome. Our objective is simple: to acknowledge and recognize the best in each category, and to showcase the development from India to the rest of Asia and the world. Next slide, please. There are a total of 32 categories, so there is a place for almost everyone to apply. The categories cover the spectrum of home, office, retail, hospitality, industrial, mixed use, and we invite nominations for both architecture and interior design. There is also a special emphasis on ESG and sustainability, with dedicated awards for projects which show compassion to the environment. There is also a Real Estate Personality of the Year award. The new categories this year I want to highlight are Best Second Home Development, Best Operational Hospitality, Office, Industrial, and Retail Portfolio. Next slide, please. Entries have been open since Jan and close on 24th of September. Site inspection follows soon thereafter, and final judging takes place on 11th of October. All of this culminates in the virtual gala, which is on 9th of December. I'm hoping this will be in Bangkok in person, but that will be determined by how things play out over the next few months. Next slide, please. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Khanna, for taking us through the timelines as well as the categories. And I noticed that it's a very, very wide base of categories that we have, which is great, I think, from India's point of view, because we are a very, very diverse market. Without further ado, again, I would like to call upon Mr. Ajay Kapoor. He is the CEO of 360 Degrees, a real estate service firm, and he's the member of the judging panel as well.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Ajay Kapoor. Yeah. So it's my pleasure to be a part of this session today as a judge on the panel. And I look forward to participating and going through all the nominations, which will be coming in all through the for the session. I think there are a few good things lined up for the country and for the real estate fraternity this year. And Property Guru is definitely doing some great amount of stuff, which is all over the world and in India. Am I audible?
Yeah,
Rafi, am I audible?
I can hear you, Ajay. Yeah.
Great.
Yes.
Great. So Rafi, you wanted me to run through some particular questions.
It would be interesting if you could highlight how online platforms for selling and buying real estate market, how that has moved and the impact of pandemic on purchasing online. If there is anything that you can highlight about that, it'll be interesting.
Sure. So I think one good thing which has happened in the last few months is that the pandemic has definitely made the real estate market much more organized. With a lot of many developers have taken up technology in a very different manner, and they're using technology to the ultimate possible manner to be able to reach their customers in different ways. Right from virtual tours to drone shots to drone videos, I think developers are going all out to reaching their customers because they realize that physical meetings and physical visits are definitely becoming a limitation. So the online market has transformed quite a lot in the last few days, the last few months, and it has reached a complete different level, and it is helping the real estate market move much more faster, is what we really observe basically. Having said that, there are other areas in the online market also, which have been definitely positively affected. We're seeing a lot of tech-related advancements in the prop tech area also. And we're seeing a lot of artificial intelligence, a lot of data mining, which is happening. And I'm sorry, I'll just take a break 1 second.
That's okay. Maybe we can, if we give Ajay a break, maybe we could move on to Madhav and then come back to him.
Yes,
Yeah.
I was just waiting for him. I think he's having some technical issues. But while we wait for Ajay to come back, may I invite now Mr. Madhav Raman to take center stage and share with us his view on what is happening and as well as the Property Awards as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Rafi. And I'll try and be brief and succinct so that we can hear more from Ajay. I think everyone's kind of trying to muddle around and figure their way out, at least in the design fraternity, about the impact of this pandemic and the holy grail of the new normal. I basically have two perspectives on this. One is the impact that this pandemic is going to have on, let's say, programming congregation. How are people actually going to come together? A lot of what moves the real estate market, affects pricing, affects land prices, has to do with density management, has to do with organizing occupancy of buildings in order to work, or for commercial reasons, or for homes. And these have kind of been shaken up by this pandemic. And there's a lot of new ways of thinking of how are we actually going to program in design congregations of various kinds. Obviously of concern in programming is of the redundancies that are implied on existing real estate developments or real estate or properties really. So what do we do with the size and scale of spaces that are now perhaps not going to be occupied in the same manner at the same time or with the same intensity? And does that give us more elbow room to tie into the kinds of things that perhaps were not a priority earlier? For example, the affinity between the inside of a building and the outside of a building for various, whether it's to do with the circulation patterns, whether it's got to do with the way the building relates to the outside in terms of ecologies, natural systems, so on and so forth. So the idea is that if we are changing the way in which we are going to be using buildings, is there space that we can find within existing buildings where we can open up these sort of buffer or transitory spaces between the inside and outside? So to put it very bluntly, things like, is there real estate potential in a balcony for function and use, which would have otherwise merely been a facade element? So that's the kind of swing in perspective that one is reading in the design space. Just to kind of push through a little bit more on retrofitting these existing structures, I think designers are now realizing that they need to invest a lot more in their processes, in how do you kind of seamlessly allow technologies to integrate, specifically communication technologies. So if buildings were defined by function, so you had rooms that were meant for certain purposes, that's kind of broken up right now. So we're now looking more at designing personalities or designing nooks rather than designing spaces for single use, because use is now disparate, it's diverse, it's distributed, it's diffused. So that is one aspect. The other is to kind of look at technologies of sensors. So to understand, is it possible to now retrofit building with occupancy sensors, with usage sensors, so that one is able to collect data on usage and so on and so forth, and integrate that into design. So these are concerns. Of course, immediately the emphasis on hygiene, is interesting. In architecture, modernist architecture that started in 1920s came on the back of multiple such pandemics. So you had, cholera, tuberculosis, Spanish flu, and they all resulted in a particular stylistic form of architecture, which is sleek surfaces, service intensities had increased, your abilities to clean surfaces and buildings and maintain them kind of took a primacy, became more important. And one starts reading that in architectural design through styles also. So if this is the next shakeup after a century, then maybe this will result in more exciting forms and more exciting architecture.
Madhavan, before I let you go, there was one or two questions I had, which is very interesting. Keeping the way the real estate industry, especially in India, has been moving. Of course, now we see in tier 2, tier 3 towns, people becoming more and more aware, and therefore are looking at different design elements in their homes or, malls, buildings, which are coming up. And while this is going on, the pandemic hit. So while we were, from metros moving into the tier 2 towns, pandemic also arrived at the same time. What are the 3 trends from design point of view that you see more and more happening in commercial spaces as well as in residential spaces?
Well, that's a really good question, Rafi. I think the first, let's look at it in terms of geographies. I mean, the fact is the pandemic has made telecommunications more important than commuting.
Right.
So it kind of completely disrupts the rural to urban unidirectional process that we had been looking at urbanization. So it's kind of disrupted that. And suddenly, and this is great for India really, because honestly, we are a very large number of people, a large country, and we don't have enough tier 1 cities. We didn't have earlier. And that was one of the big problems, that our tier 1 cities were almost collapsing under the pressure of population. And what the pandemic has done is it's made very, very evident that location is no longer a foolproof mantra. And that you can actually discover real estate potentials where the experience of occupying space is at a greater premium. So you have people who are investing in smaller markets now, with the hope of actually occupying. I'm talking about end users. And so that's a cue for developers also, that the assumption that housing or commercial space in tier 2 or tier 3 cities is in some way or manner subsidiary to tier 1 cities is no longer the case. In fact, building in tier 1 is going to be drastically more expensive when compared to building in tier 2 or tier 3, because those are emerging markets and they've been like that before. Like you said, before the pandemic, they were already emerging. And I think this is kind of going to press the pedal to the metal as far as innovation in typologies, in product offerings, in financial ways of financing those investments, whether they're end user or real estate investments for returns. So I think I'm actually really positive about the impact this pandemic will have on the potentials that have been locked into tier 2, tier 3, and I wouldn't hazard to say tier 4, really large, almost cities or towns. Those are where, the really innovative developers should be looking in India.
Last question before I let you go. In residential buildings or homes, is there any impact that you see, a direct relation to pandemic and the new construction that is coming up? Is there one or two things that everybody is, majority is demanding, which wasn't the case before?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's very strange. We used to look at our homes as an escape from work. Now, I do believe the occasions that we visit offices are experiences we look forward to. So I think office or workspaces are going to invest a lot in kind of improving the experience of working in those spaces, whether it is to enhance the way people work together, a sense of kind of belonging to a team, the things that you're insulated from at home. On the home front, since now we are working from home, like I said, in my experience so far in the past year and a half has been that there's been a very quick shift in thinking away from the BHK model, bedroom, hall, kitchen, and to kind of find out where is it that my children are going to study, where is it where I'm going to be able to do my work, how will I be entertaining people, do I have enough open space attached to my home, whether through a garden or a balcony that allows me to have a more outdoor usage possible. People are investing a lot in their own well-being and in their health. So even in the smallest apartments, one is seeing evidence of trying to kind of incorporate a fitter lifestyle. So these are all, people are looking at gardening and, having house plants, like the way, their attitude has become almost like the way they had it for pets. So, so there have been these remarkable shifts in how people look at their homes, their places of work, and where those convergences and divergences have happened. And this is, a fluid space. I think one should keep an eye on the ball and watch the roller coaster as it goes along. So that's what I see coming up.
Thank you so much.
Just Rafi, sorry to interrupt. Just before, I think there's another point that I'd like to make, because I do want to congratulate Jules for the way in which last year's round had happened, because that was a sudden impact on even what we had planned would be our cycle for the awards. And I think, the thing is that now more than ever before post-pandemic, there's an importance to recognize the nature of innovation. It's no longer, traditionally in India, awards have been given almost on a scorecard, where certain parameters are fixed and you just benchmark your performance against those parameters. And now is really the time when real estate, architecture, construction, across technology, programming, and communications and digitization really, we're really looking at the seedbed now of really path-breaking, groundbreaking approaches, ideas, and so on and so forth. So in our jury process, I do want to emphasize, I think Amit touched upon it as our chair, this idea of debate, the idea that this is extremely subjective ground to judge, and therefore whatever expertise we bring to the table is meant to really bounce off each other, and for us to be able to balance intangible values rather than quantifiable numerical values. So I really look forward to it, because like I said, post pandemic, this is blue sky thinking is invited, and I hope we get that and we are able to celebrate blue sky thinking. you know?
Well, I think it's exciting times, as you rightly pointed out. I think sometimes we are pushed by environment and circumstances to innovate more rapidly. And I think this is exciting time because technology is moving at a fast pace. People's desires and the impact of pandemic has made a lot of people look inwards and see what we can do. So I'm hoping that India has a lot of innovation which does not get reflected very well in most of the awards, and this one, hopefully, those will come to the fore. Thank you so much, Madhav, for your speech. Last but not the least, I would like to call upon Mr. Paul Ashburn, ASPAC leader, HLB Real Estate Group, the official supervisor of PropertyGuru Asia Property Awards, India as well. Thank you so much, Paul.
Thank you, Rafi. Good day, everyone. Thank you for joining us. ASPAC is Asia Pacific area, and I'm very glad to be talking to you today, as HLB has been selected this year to be the official judging supervisor for the Asia Property Awards. As Madhav mentioned, real estate is on a roller coaster at the moment, with acceleration in so many areas and innovation. So it is actually, even we're in a pandemic, it is an exciting time to be involved in real estate. Firstly, though, allow me to give you a quick introduction into HLB. Next slide, please. And the next one. There we go. HLB is a global network of advisory and accounting firms, and we're dedicated to helping businesses grow across borders. The network itself has been in existence for over 50 years now. And today, HLB is located in approximately 160 countries, with more than 30,000 people working out of close to 1,000 offices around the world. Next slide. And one more touch. There we go. In keeping with today's awards theme, oh, go back, please. I'm delighted to share with you that HLB won the Accounting Industries Network of the Year Award in October last year. The award recognizes the network's reputation for quality and excellence in a number of key strategic and operational areas. Next slide, please. In Asia, HLB has a very strong presence, employing the largest number of professionals outside of Europe. We are operating in 30 countries in Asia, including India, of course, with close to 9,000 people working out over 150 offices. And this strong footprint in Asia allows us to cover the 15 plus markets that are part of the Asia Property Awards program this year. Now I'll talk more about our role as the official supervisor of the awards. Next slide, please. HLB's role this year will be to ensure that the judging is carried out as per the published guidelines, to maintain the award's reputation for being credible, fair, and transparent. HLB supervises the entire process, attending the judges' meetings, the site visits, whether in person or virtual, checking the entry forms and score sheets, and approving the results of judging before they are released to the public. And very important is that adhering to the principles of fairness and transparency, we ask all the site visit and central panel judges to declare any conflict of interest with an entry, and then they'll be recused from judging on that entry. Next slide, please. Judging of awards is based on very strict criteria that is reviewed and set by the independent panel of judges. For the prestigious developer awards, the judges carefully consider a company's reputation, CSR initiatives, overall track record, displays of innovation, and achievements in the past 12 months. For the much sought after development awards, the judging criteria used is design, amenities and location, value for money, use of space, construction materials, unique selling points, state of completion, and sales success. And then if we look at the design awards, the criteria is similar, but with additional aspects of design to consider, such as site layout, internal layout, and sustainable functionality. Next slide, please. This slide explains the judging process in detail. You'll see that there are at least 3 judges' meetings planned to be held throughout the judging process. So as was mentioned before, it's not just about scores, and then we get scores, tally them, and then that's the winner. It is about deliberation. It is about discussion and judges bouncing ideas and their thoughts off each other to come up with the final shortlist. Now, at the second meeting that will be held soon, there'll be eventually an initial long list of entries to be agreed. And based on that long list, they'll then arrange the site visits, virtual or real, to be conducted by the judges or their representatives with proven property industry knowledge. And when those site visits are held, score sheets are being used to record the judging of the site visits based against the agreed criteria that I explained earlier. And then in the final meeting, we will review all the results. And then after much deliberation, as Ahmed and Madhav has mentioned, they will finally agree upon the shortlist, which will comprise of 1 winner and up to 4 highly commended. Next slide, please. So with a professionally run and supervised judging system, developers can be assured that the PropertyGuru Asia Property Awards is the gold standard in Asian real estate. So that's about our role in the awards and how the supervision is done. Now I'd like to share some insights with you from HLB's survey of global business leaders that was conducted earlier this year. And this survey is interesting because we're in the middle of a pandemic, and it's definitely accelerated the pace of change in certain areas, such as remote working and digitalization. And it is definitely accelerating changes in the real estate sector, as we have already heard today. Next slide, please. Balancing a public health crisis like a pandemic with your business-related goals isn't easy. And most people don't have that experience. And many professionals that were surveyed by HLB said they had to adjust their working style in face of the remote working and social distancing. And one of the things they found was that it was much harder to deliver what we call the human touch. So in-person interactions are missed universally, and deploying this human touch in business remains a tough act to master if you actually have to socially distance and work remotely. So what you're finding is that it's the introverts, the people with introvert personalities are perhaps thriving in this new environment, while the extroverts, think salespeople, are somewhat muted by all this. And this new environment is a challenge for selling property. It's a potential barrier to making relationships and establishing trust. That's so crucial. And for buyers, it's a big decision when you're buying your home or investment property. And you can't compare it, say, to ordering your dinner or your groceries online. It's a lot more thought's going to go into that decision. And in many of the businesses we surveyed, they really recognize that they need to strengthen their digital capabilities in order to fully benefit from the digital technologies that are available and are now accelerating in their development. And they rank that as their top weakness and area to address in 2021. So in the meantime, for buyers, digital technologies such as virtual reality or drones may offer this 360-degree property view, but still nothing's going to beat showing a property in person. Next slide. It's still unclear at the moment how exactly the workplace social distancing policies and increased virtual work will affect office building values in the medium long term. Companies and industries are still trying to find their preferred approach to the new normal. But I think we can safely say that flexible work is here to stay. And businesses are realizing too that by leveraging technology, they can access talent across the globe in a hybrid working world. So in the future, businesses may decide to downside the space that they need to account for the remote staff. Others will be seeking buildings with fewer offices, but with larger, better equipped collaboration spaces. And because of this acceleration in remote working and digitalization, we may see various real estate sectors, such as data centers, industrial properties, and single family homes with space for that home office increase in value, while perhaps retail, hospitality buildings may see a decrease. It's still too early to say what's going to happen exactly in the future. And I think it's important to keep in mind that the pandemic is really accelerating the trends that have been a long time coming. And that is digitization of workplaces, the platform economy, the expansion of the remote and flexible work, and also virtual education even. Next slide, please. Climate change and green initiatives are continuing to fuel innovation in the real estate sector during the pandemic. And from our survey, 77% of the global business leaders said that they see the recovery out of the pandemic as an opportunity. And that's an opportunity to make changes to their business now, so they position themselves to profit from the low carbon economy of the future. And just yesterday, we had the United Nations report on the state of the world's climate. And it highlights how important it is for businesses to accelerate their response to climate change. Next slide, please. Now, real estate leaders do understand that their their business customers are under pressure to reduce their carbon footprint or to comply with potentially new regulations. And when I talk about regulations, these might be government imposed, or it may be the company's own regulations and approach to addressing sustainability. And we see that increasing digital capabilities and choosing purposeful alliances and partners will be important in executing your environmentally friendly strategies. So what am I talking about? I'm talking about when you're looking at your building material suppliers, for example, you may be having to investigate and challenge them on the sustainability of their products and their manufacturing processes. And on the design side, maybe greater demand for smart building designers. Lastly, eco-friendly buildings and actions aren't just about bettering the climate. In the long term, they're going to be about building a better brand and customer loyalty. And I think this is a good time for businesses to think about the actions they need to take in order to position themselves for future success, and how their actions are going to shape the consumer's perception of their brand. Because more and more customers, it appears, are going to be considering sustainability as a criteria when making purchasing decisions. So the time is now to review and address changes to business strategy, so to come out of the pandemic with the right strategy to compete in the real estate market. Thank you, Rafi.
Thank you, Paul, and thank you to all the speakers who are with us today. Before we go into the question and answer session, I just wanted to tell all the attendees that if you want, you can ask the question on the chat in Hindi or English. I can translate both depending on who that question is for. So please do keep that in mind. Also, please remember to visit the newsroom on our asiapropertyawards.com website to view a summary of today's roundtable. But more importantly, you will get all the details that you're looking for if you want to participate or get more information. But before we answer some of the audience members' questions, let's watch a short clip of the PropertyGuru Asia Property Awards and what it's all about.
Are you ready to live for the applause at the most exclusive night in real estate? Connect with business elite and decision makers. Spanning 16 dynamic property markets in Asia Pacific. Enjoy multimedia coverage. Showcase your brand. Address the industry's key players and reach more audiences through our live broadcast. Be part of the excitement at PropertyGuru Asia Property Awards.
Thank you. And to everyone watching, please reach out to us via asiapropertyawards.com so you can take part and support this program. Now, coming back to our virtual roundtable today, the question that I have, which is open to all, everybody here, is the real estate market has been going through its ups and downs during this area, but can any of you give us a picture of where does the real estate market of India stand in the APAC region? And what is the future of Indian real estate market that you see in comparison to the region? Anyone, this question is open to everyone.
I think the chair should start. Ajay, Amit has.
Yeah, happy to start this question off. So Rafi, I think one of the things we must understand is that India, why by definition is a large country with a huge population, but when it comes to real estate, for the last several years that I have been in this industry, we're still talking about the same cities. And to Madhav's point, and the depth of real estate in this country is not the same as the depth of real estate perhaps in China or other parts of the world, the US or Europe. I have a sense of where office, retail, and industrial segments of real estate rank in the APAC region for India. We rank about 6th, and we are a very minute proportion of the total. A large part of transaction values done for investment properties in APAC are largely in Japan, China, Australia, and India is only a tip of the iceberg. But what's changed is that over the last few years, we've been seeing a lot of, I saw a question on FDI as well, a lot of foreign money has been flowing into India. The top 3 or 4 transactions which have been consummated in India over the last few years, including the pandemic years, are large investments by Brookfield, which took over RMZ Corp's operations. Blackstone has been buying almost everything under the sun. Large private equity investors are coming into India and picking up portfolios from developers. So on a ranking point of view, we're still very, we are very far behind in Asia. And which is why, it's also important for us from a recognition perspective to be featured in a property award platform like PropertyGuru Asia Property Awards, to be recognized for our expertise in design and architecture. Over to you, Madhav, if you have something to add.
No, I would largely concur. I mean, Amit has much greater perspective on the way foreign investments will move and behave in our market. My brief point is basically this: as someone who looks at urban fabrics across this country, I do see the seedbed for a huge bounce back. If you look at how government policy translates to urban policy on the ground, you're seeing there's now structured policy on how rentals should work. I mean, there's a beginning of affordable housing that is not linked to ownership. There are going to be fill-ups, no doubt, to tourism and hospitality, because that was, before the pandemic, one of our biggest sunshine industries. So now those fill-ups in policy, how do they translate onto ownership of property? These are all spaces to watch. But like Amit also said, the potential of the Indian market is in the depth of the market, is in the fact that we have such diverse geographies and climatological climatological contexts, wherein there is genuine innovation is what is going to kind of float to the top. It's not a market that responds very well to standard formats. I think there's always something there, and that's essentially, again, to kind of concur with Amit, that's the real potential of the Asia Property Awards in India.
If you don't mind, related with what we have been talking about, so as you spoke about the fact that technology embracing is something that we are seeing more and more happen. Some part of it is forced, some because of the pandemic, and some part is the movement of the industry. However, green buildings is something that is a big focus area, I know, in certain markets. I'm not too sure how that is translating into India, and especially as the market evolves and gets more deeper. That was one question. And related with that is that, are developers looking at adapting latest technologies? Because the impression is that real estate sector is one of the last to adapt technology. And it's out open to all of you, because it'll be interesting to get a perspective of India versus the rest of Asia as well.
Yeah, I think I strongly suspect what's visible as technology and what's invisible. Perception of technology defines that. I would say that at least in the past 5 or 6 years, I've seen a remarkable shift in the adoption of digital processes in how design segues into the commercial aspects of real estate. I think the idea that technology is something that needs to be kind of induced into design thinking right at the initial stage of the project, rather than looking at it as something that gets retrofitted through conduits and pipes later only, is key. And these technologies don't just mean communication technologies. They are building operation technologies. They are sewage management technologies. There are electricity. I mean, the greatest thing is, if India is urbanizing, is a big uptick in the amount of energy we're going to consume. So then the key question is, how are you able to kind of optimize energy usage on a real-time basis. So these are all technologies that I see a lot of real estate developers paying a lot of attention to, because these are technologies that have a huge impact on costs, operational and capex. So now the real the jump that needs to happen is that I think all stakeholders involved in the real estate market need to understand that it's not a sequential process. Technology never gets adopted sequentially. You need to have the ability to kind of look out for new technologies and think abstractly as to how that's going to change the way you're going to function or you're going to do your job within the larger real estate ecosystem. And the first few light bulbs that go off have first movers advantage on that. So the longer you kind of tether at the precipice of technology, the more you lose. So that's my take.
So before I go ahead, again, another question, because affordable housing is something that is the need for India. As we have the number of homes versus the population, there is a vast gap. And real estate is something, the prices are expensive in India in comparison to the average earning. What do you think the government needs to do on two fronts? One, to accelerate affordable housing in India, and two, to also accelerate adoption of green technologies or green construction across the country? That's part one. Part two of the same question is that while we talked about moving into real estate into tier 2, tier 3, and tier 4 markets, but we see that there are certain states under the pandemic situation where the market has gone up, and certain states where the activity of buying houses has gone down. What do you see that functioning? So three parts. One, affordable housing. What can the government do? Two, green construction, which is the need of the hour. What can the government do to accelerate that? Third, which is a more industry question out to the entire panel, how do we ensure that there is equitable demand across the country? And why is it that certain states have more demand and certain states have less demand for housing? Despite being
I don't want to hog the mic too much, but I think I'll respond to the first bit very quickly, and then I think both Ajay and Amit will have a lot more to say than me about the second two questions. I think that, look, I think there's a general understanding that urban homes in India have traditionally directly meant ownership. And the idea that your lifestyle is tied into the home that you own is kind of hardwired into our thinking of real estate. Perhaps it's because we tend to think of homes as things that get handed down through the generations. So the moment that kind of shifts, and you will find more and more affluent people willing to live in rental accommodations, provided that they tick the boxes of what they aspire to as a lifestyle. There are many people I know who own multiple homes, and they're mostly for investment and they stay on rent. And these are not unusual formats of looking at what ownership is. So I think the emphasis is more on getting real estate to perform through rentals. So in a way, that kind of indicates where government policy should be headed. Are you able to create scenarios where people's ownership of real estate is giving them some returns beyond that, 1%, 2% that we're so used to? There's no amount of spending that the government can do on urban infrastructure in tier 2, tier 3, which is too much. I think that's where the bulk of the growth is. That's where the focus is. That's where the problems are less complicated and easier to solve. And infrastructure is easier and quicker to build out. So I think these are what I would like to say, that, how does government policy, urban planning, and the real estate market link up? I think these are the key ideas. Don't only think of end user ownership, think of end user occupancy and rentals. think of ways of kickstarting more innovative products that can give you better returns or different types of returns over different periods of time. And government should kind of open up for those things to happen.
Thank you. Amit, since the first part Madhav answered, I would like to hear from you. What can the government do to accelerate affordable housing and, as I said, green building, which is the need of the hour? And to add to that, if you could also highlight how the market has changed in terms of what the consumer is looking for.
It's like, Rafi, when you get to ask one question and you ask three, so I'll try and answer all of them. But
yes, I'm sorry, I'm trying to utilize your time to get as much views as possible, expert views.
But let me talk a little bit about affordable housing, because that's a subject which is pretty close to my heart. And before that, I just want to give you some numbers, which is over the last 15 years, it's estimated that almost every minute, 30 people migrate from rural India to urban India. 30% of India's population today lives in urban India, and this is expected to increase to 40% by 2030. So there is an immense requirement and pressure on housing in urban cities. And credit to the government, they've actually done a phenomenal job of this. So there are several schemes today in place. There is the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana. There is Deen Dayal Upadhyay scheme. There is an affordable housing scheme, which allows people to buy a house as cheap as 4,000 rupees a square feet. And these are small homes. These are 600 square feet homes, aggregating to 24 lakh rupees. It's the price of a medium to an upper end car. $30,000 for people who understand dollars better. At this price point, where you have an eligibility to get 90% of your requirement as a loan, on which interest is also subsidized, and the interest is available for you as a tax deduction in your tax return, it becomes extremely attractive for first-time home buyers to invest in a property. Rather than paying rental, they're paying an EMI, which is almost of an equivalent amount. And these schemes have been tried and tested. Assets have been delivered over the last several years. And I think the government has thought about this from a holistic angle and actually made this scheme possible. So that's really what I wanted to say on affordable homes. On your second question, I'm sorry, could you just guide me again on that?
Yes. How do we ensure that environmental technologies are incorporated in large housing? So
I think this is anything that you want to achieve, no matter which part of the world you're in. If you tie a financial incentive to the ultimate objective, it becomes a line for everyone to achieve it. So on green building norms, what has been done over the last several years, and Madhav can also throw light on this, is the moment you are LEED certified or green certified or GRIHA certified, you are allowed an upside on FSI. And that immediately translates into, a bottom line enhancement for any developer. So typically you will see that any commercial or residential real estate which is getting developed today is necessarily signing on to green norms, which means that they are compliant with, the basics of sustainability, rainwater harvesting, sewage treatment plants, carbon neutrality, water consumption. End of the day, it is a monetary benefit to them and ultimately to the occupiers.
Thank you. Paul, I hope you're still there. A question that I wanted you to perhaps start answering and then others can join in is, how has COVID changed the market in terms of demand, of course, pricing, but more importantly, what are buyers looking for across various markets? If you could share some light on that.
That's a good question. I think it's, when we talk about markets, we're talking in a country, there's lots of markets you can talk about. So I think there are trends that we perhaps are seeing. And I think if I just talk from my own experience, I mentioned before about we'll talk about communications, digitalization, and more people working remotely. And I've seen a trend myself in, say, cloud computing, where before we had limited involvement in that type of work. I'm talking in Thailand, where I'm based. And now we're helping businesses to set up their cloud computing businesses, also data centers as well. So that's definitely a trend I'm already seeing, that I mentioned before, that there's going to be more investment headed in that direction. As I said, look, markets, how you define your markets. I mean, when it comes to offices, it also depends, before the pandemic, where was the market? Where was the demand and the supply? And where is it now? So, for example, again, if I look at in Bangkok, where we had a lot of grade A properties in the pipeline, and then they'll be coming readily available for lease in the next year or two. It's uncertain, what lease rentals they're going to be able to achieve, and that the expectations they had prior to the pandemic now have to be revised. And look, I think it's also, we talk about these trends and that acceleration in some areas, and I'm also like, are these trends permanent? Because I can recall when the pandemic started, we're talking about supply chains and about manufacturing and where are things manufactured, and now we're finding out, hey, we're relying on this supplier in another country, and now the pandemic, it's difficult, we could be running short. Hey, we should bring everything more in country. But then I recall there were crises before, and a lot of people, they dealt with the short-term crisis, but long-term, they just went back to normal. They went back to, what's the most efficient way to do this? What's the most cost-effective way to do things? So I did mention my presentation. I think that what we've really seen is an acceleration of things that we're going to happen and happen in the future, but pandemic's just accelerated things. So that's just some insights I can share with you.
Very quickly, Rafi, if I can get in, I think, we're now almost exactly 30 years after the Indian economy liberalized. And quite frankly, there has been a certain lag in the liberalization of housing in particular, and allowing products and financial models to proliferate in terms of how various segments of the market can access and occupy affordable housing. Affordable being a relative and a subjective term, because you will pay money into something that you see value in. So if someone finds value in an elevated sort of a housing, affordable housing is not necessarily low cost. So I just feel that I have a feeling, given the urban migration crisis, given the general tendencies for white collar work to look very seriously at reduced office occupancies, more work from home, that sort of thing. The real key here is for all stakeholders in the real estate market to look at what it means for a more liberalized housing sector.
Okay, thank you. Jules, I wanted to ask you a particular question. How does it benefit real estate players by participating in an independent award, which is held like your award? How does it give them benefits when the real estate players do participate in these awards? If you could shed a little bit light on that.
Sure, of course. I mean, obviously, the initial benefit of this is the recognition. I think what a lot of people forget is the amount of effort that goes into property development. Your average property, 3 to 5 years of investment, all the way from the beginning master planning stages through to the design, through to the construction, etc. There's a lot of people involved in projects all over the region that are working very hard to achieve not only finishing the project, but obviously getting it onto the market and to sell it and to market it. So when you do receive an award by an independent expert panel, and especially on a regional level, that does give a lot of motivation and recognition to the teams working within these developers across the region, both in specific countries and regionally. So that's one of the big things that we've always found developers appreciate, is just that recognition. But beyond that, there's also the opportunity to use the award, obviously for your marketing, and also as a benchmark for the quality that you're providing to your buyers. So we do publicize the awards widely. I think, as I mentioned at the beginning, 500,000 viewers online. You are reaching far beyond your normal market with regards to the exposure of your brand. PropertyGuru itself, as you may know, is the leading property portal in 5 countries across the Asia region, headquartered in Singapore, obviously a very core market for a lot of developers internationally as well. So we do broadcast and publicize the winning properties and projects and companies across all of our markets. So in terms of reach, the Asia Property Awards, particularly as a regional platform, is very useful for developers from all the countries that participate. And then, of course, we also give a lot of editorial support. The galas themselves are an opportunity for, if it's a physical gala, for the developer to get up on stage in front of their peers and really, to shout about their success. And also, in many cases, a very rare opportunity for developers to actually network with each other. And property professionals to connect and talk to each other, in a specifically targeted environment around real estate. And when that takes place online, it's equally important that we give them that exposure, and we do therefore interview all the winners. They get to present their properties and what makes it an award-winning property via the gala, as well as doing so for the judges. So multiple ways that this kind of event helps to promote properties, companies, and really to recognize the effort, the innovation that goes into creating some of the finest properties that are coming out every year in all our countries.
Thank you so much, Paul. Thank you, everyone, for answering all these questions and me bothering you over those. And as we come to a close of our virtual roundtable, we would like to acknowledge the support of our esteemed partners: Official Supervisor, HLB; Official Magazine, PropertyGuru Property Report; Official Cable TV Partner, History Channel; Official PR Partner, Fleshman Hillard; Official Charity Partner, Right to Play; Official ESG Partner, Barndeck Foundation. But before we conclude, we would also like to remind everyone of our entry timeline and key dates for PropertyGuru Asia Property Awards India 2021. Our entries opened on 1st Jan. They will close on 24th September 2021, so we still have time. Site inspections will happen between 27th and 8th of October. Final judging will happen on 11th October, and hopefully by 9th December 2021, we will have a virtual gala, perhaps if situation is better, in person, and that is what we all wish for, so that this pandemic goes away. I just wanted to also remind you that the presentation of the PropertyGuru Asia Awards India will be streamed across multiple channels, including asiapropertyawards.com and their newsroom, the official Facebook and YouTube channels on Thursday, 9th December 2021, to be immediately followed by the regional PropertyGuru Asia Property Awards Grand Final. We look forward to seeing you there. And thanks so much to everyone for joining our virtual roundtable today for the 2nd annual PropertyGuru Asia Property Awards India 2021. Please do feel free to send inquiries to the email on the screen and stay connected to the Property Guru Asia Awards and social media channels. And for any further information, please visit www.asiapropertyawards.com. On behalf of Property Guru Asia Awards, thank you for your participation today, and I wish you a very, very pleasant afternoon. Thank you.